Hello, everyone, and welcome to my lair. Um, it's it's a work in progress. There's still quite a few little kinks I need to work out. Like for one, all the crap behind me. Sorry about that. Still trying to figure out where to put the kids' bikes and things like this, but we'll get it sorted out one of these days. And the other thing I should mention is that you may notice that I look like hell right now, and there's a couple of good reasons for that. Um, the first is that my lair or my garage, um, I think is about 212,000 degrees centigrade right now. So I'm going to be sweating like a hog, and I apologize. And the other reason is that my family and I we just got back from scouting out in Nevada, and I haven't even had time to really shower. And I really wanted to get into this because we got everyone down, and really the only reason I'm out my I'm going to keep calling it my lair. My lair is because it's late at night and everybody's asleep now, and I don't want to wake them up with my rantings and ravings. So, with that said, I'll go ahead and get into it. And I wanted to actually start with Mark Twain. I know that might not seem like the appropriate thing to think of, but I mean, he was a great writer, just like Tolkien was. Maybe we should talk about Mark Twain. Wonder when, I wonder when Amazon's going to ruin Tom Sawyer. Um, Anyway, although, gosh, Pudd'nhead Wilson would be right up their alley. They should do that. I'll write Jeff Bezos. Anyway, I think it was Mark Twain. I could be wrong about this, but I think it was Mark Twain who said that there are three kinds of lies. There are lies, damned lies, and statistics. Um, and I should also maybe kind of point out that this is probably the sort of video that may be very frustrating because um, I'm really only going to be opening up a bunch of questions rather than giving any answers. And the reason why is because I don't really have many answers. That's one of the beauties of being a history instructor, that we don't know. We just make crap up and expect people to believe it. That's not true. But I've been seeing a lot more about the Rings of Power. I was only really going to make one video about the Rings of Power just because I didn't really feel like making a bunch of videos about the Rings of Power. Um, but I've been seeing a lot about Rings of Power. I mean, I have an Amazon Prime account, as I think many people do. I mean, I happen to have a package I got from Prime right here. Um, and really, if you have a Prime account, then there's no way to not see everything about it. I logged into Prime earlier today to look up a book for a class, and here's Rings of Power all over the store. And then my wife turned on our TV to watch some videos, and she said, "This is crazy. They have all this Lord of the Rings stuff, and you can look at, you can watch The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings and all of this, and the giant banner that says Rings of Power." I said, well, yeah. So it's really hard not to see it. And then my wife also just showed me an article from Fox News about how the Rings of Power was the most watched premiere ever. I think that's like ever. It said something like 25 million views in its first one. And to be honest, um, I mean, that may be a result of all of the negative press as well. I mean, I'm sure many of you know that the Rings of Power has been receiving quite a bit of not so wonderful and stellar reviews, or at least anticipatory reviews. In any case, so I'm sure there was a lot of people who wanted to watch it just so that they could bash it. But of course, what does this really mean? What does 25 million views mean? I mean, can 25 million people be wrong? Clearly, they all watched it and were stunned by its excellence, right? I mean, that's what happens in these things. You just watch them, and all of a sudden, you think, my goodness, how wonderful it is. And if you think about it, I mean, I myself was one of the people who made The Wheel of Time the most watched premiere of the year for Amazon way back in 2021. But as I said before, I also don't think that I made it through 15 minutes. But I mean, that counts as a view, right? I'm just curious, where are the other statistics, right? How many people watched the whole thing? At what point did they stop watching? How many people actually enjoyed it? How many people watched the whole thing through just because they, really didn't have anything better to do? How many people turned it on and walked away? I mean, I don't even know if you can quantify a lot of these things. I think, though, and I think maybe you agree with me because you're watching me sweat away in my garage, the primary question is the Rings of Power good? And I would argue, I've said this before, and maybe I'll need to try to prove it to you sometime, I would argue that objective goodness exists even in art. Objective goodness, I will say it as a fact now, exists. And many people actually mistake objective goodness for whether they like it or not, right? Oh, I really like that. Is it good? Yes, I really like it. That sort of thing, right? That's not goodness. Goodness, of course, transcends taste and encompasses things like quality, morality, these sorts of things, right? And I mean, we have, I guess if we want to get Platonic about it, we have types for what is good, right? What is ultimate good and everything. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole very much. But we all know that Tolkien created something incredibly good. By whatever standard you measure it, he made something incredibly good. I mean, regardless of whether you personally enjoy reading it. I don't know if the Rings of Power is good in an objective sense. I mean, again, I have some pretty good indication from what I've seen in the trailers and Amazon's destruction of Robert Jordan's work to be pretty doubtful as to it being good. But of course, Amazon, I'm going to guess here, is probably not very concerned with goodness. It's probably not They are probably not very concerned with oh boy, the gender of Amazon. It'd be a woman, right? Amazon. Anyway, she probably isn't very concerned with goodness. I'm guessing that it's more about profitability. I mean, are we going to turn a buck? Are we going to make a return on our investment? And so I think the next question, of course, becomes, do people actually like it? And I mean, again, we're not talking about good stuff here anymore. We're talking about likable things. Do you actually enjoy this thing? And I mean, I have to confess, I'm sure you can do the same. I like all sorts of things that are objectively bad. Little Caesars is objectively bad fast food, which of course fast food itself is objectively bad food. Boy, I really like a hot and fresh pizza sometimes. It's not fresh, it's ready, hot and ready. They made it like a half hour before, so it can't be fresh. Anyway, there you go. Speaking of fast, by the way, I'm almost ashamed to admit that I like the Fast and the Furious movies. And I like them with the full knowledge that they are not good. In fact, they're really dumb. Sometimes, I can feel like all of my brain cells like getting high in a corner somewhere when I watch Fast and the Furious. But I like it. So sometimes I just want to watch bad film. Now, what's interesting is that, of course, Amazon wants the Rings of Power to be popular. I'm not sure that they were concerned with it being good as long as it drives subscriptions, right? And I don't know. Do they get like ad money too? I'm trying to think of like other. I don't think there's ads. Is there merchandise that gets sold? Now I'm curious. That's another question I'll raise. Actually, I mean, how else does Amazon hope to make money from this? I mean, is it being popular enough? It'd have to be like driving subscriptions, wouldn't it? And getting people to want to subscribe to their streaming service. There's got to be other things. I don't know. That's another question. And the other question then is it doing that? Is it driving subscriptions? Is it being popular? Is it making people like it regardless of whether it's good or bad? And again, this Fox News article that my wife came up with said that it had tons of views, right? But then again, I mean, Amazon's a freaking huge streaming service, right? I don't know the statistics, but everybody's got Amazon. And it's advertising pretty hard. Again, like I said, you can't really go anywhere near Amazon without getting a giant, Rings of Power placard in your face. And we've established also that a bunch of views don't mean necessarily that people like it. I mean, I would bet that Adolf Hitler, for example, here I'm going to go with Hitler, is one of the most studied men in the world. But if he was a movie, how would he be reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes? Um, I'm gonna guess that the audience score would be pretty bad. I'd also guess that the critic score would be pretty bad as well. And then one of the interesting things about that Fox News article is it mentioned Rotten Tomatoes. It mentioned the scores and everything that it's getting. And I thought that was rather interesting because they gave an explanation of the audience reviews. Because when I looked, the audience reviews were at 38%. I guess that means 38% of people liked it, or in the 1 out of 5 stars or something, it gets a 38% something. I don't know. Anyway, and it was interesting because the article said that the show was being review bombed by people who have problems with its cultural or political views rather than its actual quality. And I thought that was kind of interesting, right? I mean, sure, if that's a way to either tank a show or really bolster a show, then yeah, I would almost argue though, or at least maybe not argue, but wonder again, who has the time and the money to go ahead and go and review bomb something? I don't know. Anyway, I checked it out. All right, I went to Rotten Tomatoes. I checked it out, and one, I thought it was a little odd since I could see the audience reviews left on Rotten Tomatoes. I could actually look at what the audience reviews were and see what people actually said. I couldn't see any critic reviews, and I'm not very savvy with Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if this is a normal thing where critics will just say this is good and then never tell you why. I thought that was a little funny. I'm used to like Siskel and Ebert from the old days, and it's 2 thumbs up, but why is it 2 thumbs up? Because of all this stuff, right? And again, I'm curious what these film critics see that only 38% of viewers see also. And the other thing, I mean, I guess I kind of wondered about this a little bit. Can't review bombing go both ways? I mean, is it possible that if you're going to spend, according to the Fox article, it was like $500 million, but let's even say just that. If you're going to spend $500 million, I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility to spend a couple $1 million on some other people to say, hey, go make our show worth more by giving it better reviews than it actually deserves? I don't know. I mean, if we're just talking from a capitalist point of view, that would make more sense to actually try to bolster a show to get sales or subscriptions than it would for somebody to just, say, oh, I hate it. I'm going to go ahead and make 15,000 different accounts that'll all bomb it. I mean, I guess people are vindictive, so why not? But again, can't people who are supportive of a series' perceived cultural and political views also inundate reviews with overly positive reviews? I guess. I don't know. So I actually read some of the audience reviews, and one of the things that struck me was the uniformity of the reviews. Now, this is totally anecdotal, so don't take this as a statistic because I'm not lying to you, right? It's just my perception here, which could be flawed also. And really, it's only from the small section that I viewed, maybe 50 reviews out of the about 15,000 that were apparently there. There seemed to be very few middling reviews. That was my perception from my very small experience. They were usually either really, really high or they were really, really low. And the very, very highs often had a brief sort of super excellent, can't wait for more, that kind of review. Whereas the lows were often didn't respect the lore, bad writing, bad music, bad acting, and that kind of thing. And again, this is anecdotal, but anecdotally, what I saw from the bads did seem to give more concrete reasons for the poor score. And there could be a couple of reasons for that, right? As an educator, I do know that students at least are more willing to be very concrete with what they hate about teachers rather than what they love. Still, I mean, if I ever got a course review of 38%, I would be asking myself some rather pretty hard questions about my teaching quality. And And at the same time, I would be trying to sell my supervisors this story about review bombers, and it was one student who just ruined it all by having a bunch of bots. Anyway, so after all of this, I'm just wondering what's going on. Because I've kind of resolved. It doesn't seem like it's going to be interesting to me. I mean, the story doesn't seem that hugely compelling because the story that is compelling was already told by Tolkien. And the reason he chose to tell that story in the Lord of the Rings is because that was the good one, right? And then he had the other ones that was kind of like all the lore and stuff behind it. But again, what's going on? Do people actually like this? I mean, am I a thought criminal for not wanting to watch it? Am I going to wake up duct taped to a chair with my eyes pinned open to the Lord of the Rings of Power, while morphine drip feeds me good feelings about it? Well, only time will tell. I mean, I would be excited to hear your thoughts on it. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to jump in really quick and make this, because I still, even with all the hype, all the bandwagoning and stuff, you know, the 25 million other people who have viewed this, it still just doesn't appeal to me. And maybe you saw it. Maybe you were one of the people who said, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. Or maybe you were one of the people who said, oh, this looks great. Or maybe you were one of the people who said, oh, this looks terrible. I don't know. But yeah, if you've watched it, please let me know. Throw it in the comments and give me an honest opinion. You know, as I tell my students, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, because I'm not asking them about what they thought about a particular movie. But again, if you thought it was like the best thing since sliced cheese, well, I want to know that, right? I want to know what was so awesome about it so that I can be informed of that. If you thought it was like the worst thing since Hitler and Satan had a baby, well, I want to know that too, because, well, what's so terrible about it? And then if you just thought it was the most middle of the road thing with nothing special either way, well, I want to know that too, especially specifics. That's one of the weird things about teachers is those specifics on, you know, what just was fine and okay is actually pretty important. And see if you can give me some better detail than those Rotten Tomatoers. I mean, certainly more than the invisible critics would be nice too. So I'm going to leave it at that because I think I'm about to suffer a heat stroke and I should probably put on a fan and clean up the garage so that I can have a real layer. I don't know, everybody else has cool decorations, but I have just like this kind of like gray cabinet, so there's that. But anyway, leave some comments, let me know what you think about the Lord of the Rings, or if you refuse to watch it, or at least are disinclined to acquiesce as I am, then what was that from? That was from a movie too. I am disinclined to acquiesce your request. I don't know why that just stuck in my head. But let me know. Let me know what you think. I'd be interested to hear it, and I'd like to see if there's a conversation I could get in on to learn about this stuff, because it just all seems so very strange to me. So with that said, I'll, of course, as always, wish you joy in your lives, and I will hope to see you again soon.